Well, hi, I'm Taylor. If you guys remember, the unique thing about me was that I'd done a lot of traveling. Most of that traveling I did a few years ago with an organization, a volunteer organization called Up With People. If anyone's ever heard of that, they were really big back in the 60s and the 70s. Before I traveled with them, I'd already done a lot of traveling, not as much, but I'd done a fair amount. I didn't think it was going to affect my view of life. We were going to go to a place, the Philippines, where they have 60% below the poverty line. And I thought, oh, I've read enough in National Geographic, I've read enough, I've watched enough CNN, I understand what it's like. I've heard enough stories, just kind of like the one I'm telling you right now. It's like, it's not going to really change my outlook. So before we even went there, we did something called a hunger banquet, where basically they divide the cast into 3 groups, and one group gets nothing to eat for lunch, and that's more than half the cast. The middle portion of the group gets bean soup, and then the other group gets a 3-course meal served by waiters, and everybody has to watch this happen. As fate had it, I had a friend who had type 1 diabetes, and he even had an insulin insert into his body so that he could inject himself when he needed to. And he ended up in the one group that wasn't going to eat anything, and he wasn't going to say anything. And he would have possibly ended up in the hospital, but he felt like, because of the luck of the draw, it's just how it is, let's see what happens. And I raised my hand and said, get him some food. We were in Mexico, so they went and got like 12 tacos. So in the Philippines, it was just a whole nother life. Very few people have running water. There's no warm water, if they do have running water. In one place, we had to walk along a narrow strip of land, a peninsula, to get there, and it was just covered in mud. And we walked to a community that basically looked like it was built by me, who I had no experience building homes. Imagine maybe a home half this size, cut this room in half, inverted, and you'd have 10 to 20 people living in that shack. There are also kids that go to school. They're still wearing their uniforms. They have to walk that path twice daily. There are little kids that the water that they would use to bathe would actually be the bay water, which was filled with trash. That's why we were there that day to pick up the trash. And as we found out, it wasn't even their trash. It was coming from across the bay. And each day, they'd have a new fresh batch of trash to clean up that wasn't theirs. The craziest thing about all of that is that they're still happy. Even though they get from the narrow strip of land, they have to, there's a bamboo bridge that they wouldn't let us walk on because they felt it was too dangerous for us. So instead we took a boat that they pulled along with a rope that had holes in it, and we plugged those holes with our fingers. So them being happy despite having really hardly anything just changed my own perspective here. Little things that bothered me, like traffic, not having Wi-Fi, and maybe a restaurant not getting my order right, just didn't seem like that mattered anymore. Now I take very little for granted. I'm a much more positive person, especially than when I was before I went. I never thought I was a negative person, but comparatively, I'd say definitely. So I think the Philippines or anywhere else it's just interesting. Never take for granted. I don't ever want to take for granted what I have here.